Shalom Aleichem, Parshas אחרי Tafshin Pei Daled. So we're going to go, it's going to sound like we're going off topic basically for the whole share, but hopefully we'll bring it back and we'll understand. Um, we're talking about Yom Kippur, and the Chumash goes through and basically it outlines very much of the day. It's a very systematic day. Everything's very much like explained. And then if you look in the Mishnah in Yuma, especially it's in like, I think the third parak, yeah, in the third parak, the fourth Mishnah, and there's a lot of play. Basically, the whole Mishnah is doing this. It goes through the entire Seder. And just it says that first you spread out the linen sheet between the Kohen Gadol and the people. Then he takes off his clothes, then he immerses himself, then he comes up, he dries himself, then they give him the big day kahuna, and then they put them on and they wash his hands and feet, and then they bring him the tamid, he shechs the tamid, and then he takes the blood, he spritzes it, and then he does the ketoris, v'chulei v'chulei, yeah? It really delineates the entire day. It's a very a very kind of miyuchadika Mishnah. It really just delineates exactly. Bam, bam. There's no machlokas in. There's no whatever. It's just giving you the schedule of the day. That's very much what Yom Kippur is. It's a very scheduled day. I mean, we have the tefillahs, but we're in the base of Mikdash. It was an extremely scheduled day. Okay, so we're gonna answer up like what that is. What's that about? Okay, and so in the meantime, we're gonna go to Parshas Miketz, and there's a very interesting machlokes between the Ramban Kodesh and Rashi that I've never heard of it before until I found it myself. I've never heard of it spoken about. It's very interesting. So on the pasuk, it's Bereshis Mem Beis pasuk Tes, okay, and the pasuk says, "Vayizkor Yosef Eisa Chalomus." And Yosef, this is when the brothers turned up and they're in front of him, they bow down to him. And it says, and Yizkor Yosef Esa Chalomus, he remembered the dreams, Asher Cholom Lahem, that he dreamt about them. V'yom Alehem Meraglim Atem, and he says to them, to the brothers, you're Meraglim, you're spies. Leroy says, it's Basan, you came to spy out the land. Okay? So now Rashi says, and this is how we understand it, because Rashi is Pasha Pshat. By the way, just as a side point, I took on last year I learned the Orchaim Kodesh. So a few years ago I learned the Ramban Kodesh. I bought the art scroll, and that was my project for a year. And the Eloi, I think the previous Eloi Rebbe, Yochanan Zatzal, he said that learning Chumash Ramban is a segula for emuna. Okay, sounds very nice. And after I'd finished reading the whole parish, I think I have a little inkling to what he's talking about. The Ramban Kodesh argues on Rashi like everything, literally everything you thought was Pasha Pshat. He shows you how it can't be. He pokes hole after hole after hole in Rashi, and that gives you a munah. That's what I think it is. You've got no other option. Anyway, that was a side point. So Rashi says, the famous Rashi, so it says, Asher Cholom Lehem, instead of Lehem, it says Alehem, that he had a dream about them. And he knew that this dream had been fulfilled because the brothers were bowing to him. Yeah, that's everyone there. That's the Pasha. Yeah, he saw the brothers bowing and he knew the dream had been fulfilled. So listen to what the Ramban Kodesh says. So he says, Aleim. He says, V'yadshnis kaimu sheish techavuloi. That's what Rashi said. But according to my opinion, it's the opposite. That when Yosef saw, the pasuk says, when Yosef saw the brothers bowing to him, He remembered the cholomas that he had. You have an inkling what the Ramban's going to say? So he says, "V'yada sheloi niskayim echad mehem b'pamazois." He saw that the dream hadn't been miskayim. Rashi said he saw the brothers bow down, so he knew the dream had been fulfilled. The Ramban said no. Binyamin and Yaakov weren't bowing down, so he saw that the dream hadn't been miskayim. That wasn't the dream. The dream was the 11 stars. There was only 10 brothers bowing to him right now. So he says, "Ki yodea b'tzroinam ki kol erev ishtchavu loy b'tchila." He saw that all his brothers would bow down to him first, and from the first dream, basically, he goes on. It was the second. Basically, it was the moon and the stars, and the second, it was the 11, and only there was 10 bowing to him. So he basically saw that the dream hadn't been miskayim. There was only 10 brothers bowing down to him, and he saw 11 stars. So therefore, he went and sent for Yaakov and for Binyamin, at least for Binyamin. Yeah? For Binyamin. To be miskayim the dream. So Rashi says he saw that the dream had been miskayim. So he sent for Binyamin. The Ramban HaKodesh says he saw that the dream hadn't been miskayim. Therefore he sent for Binyamin. Okay? So that's a very interesting. I mean, and to be honest, it sounds better the way the Ramban says it. Sounds more makes more sense than the way Rashi says it. So anyway, so the question then becomes on the Ramban is how can let's first we have to backtrack a minute as well. That Yosef, remember when he was in prison and the Sar Mashka helped, he told the Sar Mashka to help him get out, and he ended up with another couple of years in prison. And then Rashi says because he had a chesaron in Emunah. Yeah? So he had to go back to prison. It was like an oynish. But we know that Hashem isn't marnish anyone's stum. It's always to be masakin. So his going to prison wasn't just to teach him a lesson. It was to actually help him go up in his emunah. If he was chassid in his emunah because he said to the Sar Mashkim, "Make sure to mention me when you get out." Now, this time, he went back to prison for 2 years to take him to a whole new madrega, in Emunah, which would mean that if the same thing happened again, he wouldn't have turned around to the Sar Mashka and said, "Make sure to remember me to Paro." Itzi, okay? You're shaking your head. What's wrong?
Because from what we understand, the only reason that Yosef got more years was because he didn't have the full emunah. Now it sounds like you're saying, no, it's not the case. Hashem had other ideas.
No. You misunderstood. That he didn't have the emunah, as Rashi said, and therefore he had to go to prison. Now I'm just adding that when Hashem is manish, when Hashem gives someone an oynesh, a punishment, it's not just to tell him that he was naughty. It's to bring him to the madrega. All oynesh in Torah, all oynesh is tikkun. All oynesh is tikkun. So Lemaisa, when Yosef came out of prison 2 years later, he was at a new madrega of emunah. You agree? That's what his extra 2 years of. So what's this new madrega of emunah? You understand? The original level that he was at, he said to the cupbearer guy, whatever, Sarmashkin, he said to him, "Make sure to remind me to Paro." Rashi tells us that was a chesaron in Emunah. So he goes to prison for another 2 years. The Maisi, he has to go up high, like with Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Elazar Shimon. where they went into the cave for the extra year, and then Reb Shimon stopped burning people up. Okay, Reb Elazar kept, but Reb Shimon went to a whole new madrega. Yeah, so it's the same idea that Yosef had to go back to prison to take him to a whole new madrega. So now the question becomes on the Ramban, if you understand like that now Yosef had been taken to a whole new madrega in Emunah. Now you would think, like Rashi's pshat, that Yosef saw that the brothers that the dreams had been miskayim, and therefore he sends for Binyamin. The Ramban says Yosef saw that the dream hadn't been miskayim, therefore he sent for Binyamin. Meaning that Yosef was trying to get involved in helping Hashem in fulfilling the prophecy, so to speak. Isn't that backwards? You would think now that Yosef's come to this new level, he would see that the dream hadn't been miskayim, go back to his room and wait for the dream to be miskayim. But no, the Ramban says the pasuk says he then sent for Binyamin to be miskayim the dream. You with me?
Are we saying in a way that Yosef didn't learn from the previous situation with the Saramashkin, and why is he not reacting based on what he should have learned from that situation?
That's the question that I'm asking. You would think that you would think he saw that the dream hadn't been miskayim. Okay, Yosef, go back to your room. You're a big balamuna now. Go back to your room and wait for the Rebbeinu Shalom to deal with it. But the Ramban says, no, he dafka sent for Binyamin to be miskayim the dream. You're like, why are you getting involved in Hashem's nevuahs? Sit back and wait for it to work out. It's going to happen.
Is this a question?
That's a question of Hishtadlus.
That's a question of Ishtadlus. He's doing too much Ishtadlus. Just sit back. Like with the Saramashkin, the whole thing was doing too much Ishtadlus. Sit back. Don't mention to the Saramashkin. That's Katnei Emunah. Don't mention anything to the Saramashkin. Sit down, and the Rebbeinu Shalom will work it out for you. What are you doing? Say what you think it's Talu and Saramashkin? Like you think it's Talu and you bringing Binyamin to Mitzrayim? Sit back and wait for it to happen. That's the lesson that you learned in prison, Yosef. That's the question. You with me?
So is this more of a question on the Ramban's pshat?
Well, it's really a question on everything, but it's a question. It depends on how you cut it. It's putting everything together. But when it's really right now, it is a question on the Ramban. Yeah, it's a question on the Ramban, but learning like Rashi at the beginning. Maybe the Ramban learned differently by the Saramashkin. He probably did. If Rashi said this, he probably said something else. But trying to put it together, that's understood that he went to prison and he had to go to a new madrega of Emunah. So now, what's this that he then starts meddling? He has this nevuah, this nevuah dika dream that all his brothers are going to bow to him, and now he's like meddling in it to get it to take place. So it's moedig. I'm just going to bring this in. There's a medrash. Okay, I think it's an Eicha Rabbah. I'm going to read it to you in English. Just might as well. It's just easier. It's quite a famous medrash, and it's about the four kings: David, Asa, Yeshufat, and Chizkiyahu. Okay. And they all had different things. So David said, I pursued my enemies and overtook them, neither did I turn back until they were consumed. God answered him and killed his enemies. Asa stood up and said, I lack the strength to kill them. Instead, I will pursue them, and you do what is necessary. God said to him, I will do it. And he killed his enemies. Yeshaphat stood up and said, I do not have the strength either to kill them or to chase them. Instead, I will sing a song, and you do what is necessary. You've heard this? You've heard this? Yeah, it's a famous medrash. God said to him, I will do it. And he killed his enemies. Chizkiyahu stood up and said, I do not have the strength either to kill them, chase them, or to sing. Instead, I will sleep on my bed, and you will do what is necessary. God says to him, I will do it. As it is written, it came to pass that night. Okay, so we've got these four madregas. We've got David, Asa, Yeshufat, and Chizkiyahu. but it's not in that order. So yeah, no, it is. Chizkiyahu, yeah. So Chizkiyahu went to sleep. Yeshua sang a song, sang Shira to Hashem. Yeah, Asa chased the enemy, and David chased and fought the enemy. And in each case, Hashem helped and they were matzliach. Who was the highest level? So we obviously know that David was the highest level. And the lowest level in this mice was Chizkiyahu, who just sat there and did nothing. So this is really the answer to our question, is that Yosef didn't just go to the level of knowing that you don't need hishtadlus, which would have been the tikkun to his interaction with the Sar Mashkin. He went to a higher level where he realized that his hishtadlus and hashgacha is all the same thing. He went to the level of David in the story. This is what happened. So by the Sar Mashkin, he said, mention me to Hashem. Yeah, and that was a chesaron and a munah for the madrega that he was at. So the next level would be to not say anything to the Sar Mashkin. That would be the next level of munah. I believe Hashem's going to work it out. But the highest level of munah, say to the Sar Mashkin, mention me to Paroi, knowing Kol Zman that the Sar Mashkin is not he's nothing. And all there is the Rebbeinu Shalom. Simple, yeah? It's Pasha. What's this got to do with Yom Kippur and the Seder of Yom Kippur? It's Moiridik, because we learn from the story of Purim. Now, Purim was a wacky story of Hashgacha, yeah? And you look back at the end of the Purim story, and you realize how everything worked out, Big Teresh and Mordechai, the horse, and then there's the Haman was outside, and they built the gallows, and the whole thing. At the end of the story, you look back and you're like, Yad Hashem. Everything, Yad Hashem, Yad Hashem, Yad Hashem, Yad Hashem, Yad Hashem. The whole thing. When you're in it, it looks completely like random. But then when you look back, you see so obviously that it was the other Shem. Like these funny shidduch stories. I don't know, I have a funny shidduch story. From my side, it was very unfunny, but from my wife's side, it was all, I was just in yeshiva and my rabbi said, I got a girl for you. And that was it. But on her side, there was all this funny stuff going on, yeah? So there's these kind of like hashgacha dika stories of shidduchim where I like these hashgacha stories where you got off the bus, stopped too early, and then you bumped into an old friend who gave you the phone number of so-and-so, and then you called them on this funny day when they weren't in and they spoke to them. And before you, whatever happens, you end up meeting this girl and she, and you see the whole thing. You look back and you're like, wow, Hashem did all of this stuff. Yeah? But what about Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur is the exact opposite thing. See, Purim is like completely random, and then you look back and you see Yad Hashem, Yad Hashem, Yad Hashem, Yad Hashem. But Yom Kippur, like I just said, is completely outlined exactly how it's going to be. Now, I made my own invention, but I added like I said, there's this mission in Perek Gimel, Mishnah Daled. So I'll read it in English, and I put in parenthesis, okay, like this. They spread out a linen sheet between him and the people, 9:30 a.m. He stripped off his clothes, 9:39 a.m. Went down and immersed himself, 9:43 a.m. Came up and dried himself, 9:46 a.m. They brought him the golden garments, 9:47 a.m. He put them on and he washed his hands and feet, 9:57 a.m. Yeah, they brought him the tamid, 10:04 a.m. He shechted it, 10:06 a.m. He sprinkled the blood, 10:15 a.m. Yeah, he then went and lit the Ketores 10:18 a.m. He turned on the light 10:33 a.m. You could go through the whole day. They knew exactly how long everything was going to take. So you realize that on the 11th of Tishrei, I could tell you that on the 10th of Tishrei next year, at exactly 10:13 a.m., the Kohen Gadol is going to be shechting the Korban Tamid. And exactly 10:33 a.m., he's going to be lighting the Ketores. It's the exact opposite of the Purim story. The exact opposite. Purim was completely random. There was absolutely no human involvement in it whatsoever. And then you look back and you see the Yad Hashem. But Yom Kippur was defined by Chazal to the minute, literally to the minute, literally. And it's called Yom HaKippurim. It's called Yom HaKippurim. Why? We can't I mean, you can try and get your head around it, but you won't be able to get your head around it. It's exactly the same. Whether it happens completely random and you look back and you see how it all comes together, or whether you orchestrated it down to the very finest detail, it's all B'yad Hashem. That's why it's called Yom HaKippurim. And that's the Madrega of Yosef HaTzadik and of David HaMelech. Where B'toich HaKlipa, they are showing you that the Rebbeinu Shalom is mamash b'toich HaKlipa, not just in the random events, but in in your planned daily planning. It's Yom HaKippurim. Yom Kippur is a day like Purim. Don't think that just because it was Masuda and you planned it all out, that Hashem was any less involved. Not even one teeny bit less involved. So it comes out that you hear this like intricate shidduch story where with the bus and the telephone and the lost wallet and the funny guy in Sfas, yeah? And you're like, wow, Hashem was mamash involved. And then the next person says to you, yeah, Shadchan recommended us and we went on 3 dates and it was clear and we got married. Where was Hashem? It was the Shadchan. No. See, the Klipa, I remember I said this was a big hashkacha. It's a beautiful story that I said to, I got a phone call. I was in the old city and I got a phone call from my chavrusa. And he was so excited. He was like, Shmuel, you can't imagine what just happened. And this is the story. When we were, it was just after the tragedy in Meron. Yeah, we can't it's the second anniversary, isn't it? This Lag Bomb is like 2 years, I think. So, or 3, is it? Oh, is it 3 years? No, 2 years, 2 years. So, so I said to him, we were talking about it. And I said to him when we were learning, I said, listen, after this thing happened, you got the Chiloini papers saying that it was the crazy Haredim. You got the Haredisha papers saying it was the police. You got the police saying it was the Arabs. Yeah, I don't know who. Everyone's blaming other people. Yeah, everyone's blaming someone. And I said to my friend, imagine the situation. Everyone's like, it's terrible. It's the worst thing that could ever happen. It's so horrific. Everyone's blaming this and blaming that and whatever. And I said to him, imagine the stories like this. Yeah? It's 12 o'clock at night. Everyone's dancing and screaming. It's Lag BaOmer Meron, Rebbe Shimon, yeah? And the lights are there and the huge music and everything. And all of a sudden, there's like a cut in the chashmal, yeah? Just silence, yeah? Everyone stops for a minute. For 1 second, there's like dead silence. And just before everyone starts like singing Rebbe Shimon by themselves, yeah? The clouds above start swirling around and the sun shoots up into the sky and the clouds open and you hear a huge voice and like a finger point out and says, you. And then one of the kids just goes up into Shemayim. And then again, you, 45 Yidden. up into Shemayim. Hashem calls back 45 of his Yidden. Imagine what the papers would be saying. A completely different story. Everyone would be, the parents would be crying it'd be a little hard. They lost their child, but crying out of joy that it was their child was chosen by the Rebbeinu Shalom to go back. You realize that's really what happened. It just got clothed in klipa. So everyone would say, well, it was him, and it was him. It was this. It was the barriers. It was the slippiness. It was the pushing. That's because what I just described got covered in klipa. So my friend called me up and said, Shmuel, you can't. I told him this story in Achavrusa. He called me up and he said that is in Manchester. He said that some guy, it was in mid 40s, where my age, something like that. He just dropped dead. Just dropped. This was a few days after this. He just had a heart attack, whatever, just dropped dead. And the kids in his class were all just broken. The kids in the kids' class, the child who lost his father, all the kids were just going out their head. So they called my friend in to say something. And I just told him that idea 2 days earlier. And he said it just helped everyone in the class. I mean, what else would you say? I'd said it for Shkacho anyway, but it just everyone was able to just, it really helped. For something that's, it helped. And that's the Madrega of David and of Yosef was Dafka, that Madrega, where within the Klipa, within the Hishtadlus, they could see that there's only the Rebbeinu Shalom. And that's why it's Yom HaKippurim. Because in Yom Kippur, in Purim, when you look back, it's clear that it was always the Rebbeinu Shalom. But it's not so clear. It's like easier in a sense. I've heard Tzadikim say this, that I think the Rayatz, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, said that it's easier to have a munah when you're in business than in so it's a deeper level of emunah when you're in business than when you're in kollel, because in kollel you have nisim happening the whole time. Yeah, this guy just calls up and gives you some money, and this bond came through, and every month there's another hashkacha, whatever it is. Yeah, whereas the guys who are out there earning money, especially the people with a wage, yeah, there's absolutely no difference. Absolutely no difference. And that's what we learn from Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the day when we go to that level where the Klipa and Kedusha is all, it's all the same thing. There's only the Rebbeinu Shalom. Only the Rebbeinu Shalom. And I'll finish by a little quote. It's a Goyish quote, but I love it. I love it so much. And it says like this. Hashem is the dancer, and you're the dance. One minute. Should be the other way around. Slicha. Well, you could say it either way. The way I'd say it now is that Hashem's the dance, and you're the dancer. Meaning it's him coming through you. That's the point. Yeah. And that's what we are. And it comes out that there's two options. Either a person and then all the gray areas in the middle. Either a person's a big tzaddik or he's a big Russia. Yeah? If he's a big tzaddik, he's bottled to the Rebbeinu Shalom. And the Rebbeinu Shalom is working through him. So it says that tzaddik goizer v'Hashem miskayem. But the reason why that works is because the tzaddik, the lines between Hashem and the tzaddik have become blurred. So if the tzaddik is goizer, that's like Hashem's goizer. The tzaddik's so in line with Hashem, like you'll hear tzaddikim. There's a famous meeting between the Lubavitcher Rebbe and I can't remember. It was a big posik, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe was saying to him, "I want you to give psak that Mashiach will come now. Give psak." And this big tzaddik said, "I can't do that." I can't do that. Because he was in line with Hashem when the tzaddik is goes there, he knows that that's what Hashem wants. So it's not like Hashem, it's not like he goes against Hashem. He's so in sync with Hashem that he's goes, and that's really Hashem speaking. So that's one option. If you're a big tzaddik, then that means you're completely in line with the Ribbono Shel Olam, and the Ribbono Shel Olam is working through you 100%. But what about if a person's a big Russia? When a person's a big Russia, he becomes, like we said many times before, he becomes like a graphic in the game, like a, what's it called, an NLP, a non-playing, what's that thing called in a computer game? Non-living player, NLP, a non-live, I think a non-living player or non-live player, an NLP, like the mushroom in Mario, like the turtles in Mario. They're just graphics. That's a complete Russia is mamash just a graphic. Mamash just a graphic. Again, completely in line with Ratzon Hashem, but not to his choosing. Not to his. He gave up to the default of the Klippa. So either way, it's always all Hashem. So that was that's Yom HaKippurim, as well Hashem. Should be zocher to see through the Klippa, see it's always a Ribbono Shel Olam. And by the way, very important, I'll close here in a minute.